Today, I'm going to count exactly 1,000 cars on the streets of Suzhou to see just how popular EVs have become in China. First, a quick shout out to Immersive China. This video was inspired by his creative work. So thank you for the inspiration. Right now, I'm standing on a pedestrian bridge at Longhu Paradise Walk in the Shangcheng district. It's the perfect spot for our observation today. Why choose Suzhou? Well, it's right next to Shanghai and is the strongest prefecture-level city in China's economy. But more importantly, unlike cities like Beijing or Shanghai, you don't need a permit or a lottery to buy a car here. That means the brands and energy types you see on camera aren't forced by policy. They're what people are actually choosing to buy with their own money. This gives us a much more realistic look at the Chinese market. Here's how we're going to count them. We'll identify the car's energy type by the license plate color, green for NEVs and blue for gas cars. I'll be using AI models to identify the brand and model. My main tool today is China's Dubao, and if there's a clear error, I'll double-check it with Google Gemini. Of course, there might still be a few small mistakes, so feel free to correct me in the comments. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to go through them one by one. At the end of the video, we'll see which brand is the sales king, which model is the fan favorite, what were the most expensive cars we saw, and finally, what is the actual percentage of EVs? Are you ready? Let's get started. Right now, new energy vehicles, NEVs, have become a pillar industry for China. Globally, the big players are China and the US. From a consumer's perspective, the math for an EV is a no-brainer. If you drive 1,000 kilometers a month, the electricity costs only about 100 RMB. That's roughly 14 US dollars. That's about 1/8 to 1/10 the cost of a gas car. With China's massive charging network and high-voltage fast-charging tech, range anxiety is pretty much becoming a thing of the past. Looking at the last few dozen cars, the frequency of BYDs is absolutely mind-blowing. It's not just my gut feeling, the data backs it up. BYD has now broken into the top 10 automakers globally. In terms of market cap, they are right at the top, trailing only a few giants like Tesla and Toyota. So, how did BYD expand so fast? The answer is vertical integration. BYD's control over its supply chain is incredible. They've achieved true full-stack in-house development. Aside from non-core parts like tires and glass, almost every key component, from semiconductors and motors to electronic controls and wiring harnesses, is made by BYD themselves. This means they don't give middlemen a chance to take a cut. It also gives them massive resilience against global supply chain shifts and unmatched bargaining power on costs. This model creates a massive economy of scale. With annual sales topping 3 million units, their R&D costs are spread incredibly thin. This gives them the ultimate edge in any price war. Of course, scale is just the result. The core strength is still the technology. First and foremost is the blade battery. It uses the battery cells as structural parts, which massively increases energy density while keeping the high safety of LFP chemistry. Then you have the E4 platform, the Diasus system, and the latest DMO platform. Now that we've seen the BYD army, let's keep counting. Even with the massive rise of EVs, the number of Volkswagens on the road is still staggering. For many Chinese consumers, German engineering and reliability are still deeply trusted. It's a brand loyalty built over decades. To understand these joint ventures, we have to look back at a 40-year history. In the 1980s, China's auto industry was just starting out. To catch up quickly, we began the era of trading market for technology. In 1984, the first joint venture was born. The model was usually 50-50. The Chinese side provided land, labor, and policy support, while the foreign partner brought the technology, machinery, and car models. For a long time, a joint venture car was the gold standard for high quality. From iconic early models like the Santana and Jetta to modern global releases, These brands once controlled over 70% of the Chinese market. That dominance lasted for decades, but the tide has turned. You can see it right here in the traffic. While you still see plenty of VWs, Toyotas, and Hondas, sales of joint venture gas cars are shrinking fast. These brands are facing unprecedented pressure for two main reasons. First, Chinese consumers are now obsessed with smart cockpits and autonomous driving. Compared to the rapid innovation here, the update cycles of traditional foreign brands feel way too slow. Second, it's the math. Like I mentioned earlier, when the running cost of a local EV is only 1/10 that of a gas car, the brand premium of old-school German cars starts to crumble against reality. Owning a joint venture car used to be a status symbol. Now it's just a pragmatic choice. Has their historical mission come to an end? Can they actually make a comeback in the EV era? Check out the car marked with the red arrows. This is the Auto M5. This model is a deep collaboration between Huawei and Seres, and it's one of the most talked about cars in China right now. The partnership model here is very unique. All the core tech, like the Harmony OS smart cockpit, the ADS automated driving system, and the entire electric drive system, comes entirely from Huawei. Seres, on the other hand, handles the chassis development and the actual manufacturing of the vehicle. Huawei has always stated publicly, "We don't build cars, we help car makers build better cars." To do this, they created a unique business model called HIMA, Harmony Intelligent Mobility Alliance. This is much more than just supplying parts. Under this model, Huawei is deeply involved in every single step. We're talking about product definition, industrial design, strict quality control, and even selling the cars through Huawei's thousands of retail stores. Simply put, the car maker provides the body, while Huawei provides the brain and the nervous system. Right now, Huawei is quickly assembling its automotive legion. You might have heard of their 5 realms strategy. There's Auto with Seres, Luxeed with Sherry, Stellato with Bayek, and Maextro with Jax. More brands are joining the lineup as we speak. Huawei's strategy is clear. Launch multiple brands across different price points to take over the market as fast as possible. But this model has also sparked a huge debate. Why do many traditional auto giants keep their distance from Huawei? It comes down to the famous soul argument. The fear is that if a car maker hands over core tech like smart cockpits and self-driving to Huawei, they lose their identity. They basically become a contract manufacturer for hire. To these companies, smart technology is the soul of the brand. If the soul is gone, all that's left is an empty shell. But looking at it another way, for traditional brands struggling to go digital, is Huawei taking their soul or giving them a new life? Only the market can answer that. The car you just saw is an Innovate. Today, this brand has almost completely disappeared. In China, the EV industry moves at breakneck speed. Every year, new players enter the race, but many don't make it to the finish line. It's a brutal cycle of rapid evolution and rapid extinction. Aside from Innovate, think about brands like WM Motor, which was once a top contender, or Hi-Fi, known for its futuristic designs but now struggling to survive. Why are they vanishing? It's simple. The stakes are too high. If you can't keep up with the cutthroat pace of R&D in self-driving or smart cockpits, consumers will abandon you overnight. Plus, with giants like BYD and Tesla driving prices down, Smaller brands with no clear edge get crushed by the sheer economy of scale. But this great shuffle is also why the survivors are so strong. The intense competition forces every remaining company to innovate like their lives depend on it. Because they do. Every brand still standing has fought its way out of a graveyard. Among the 1,000 cars we're counting today, dozens of brands are represented. But how many of them will still be on the road in 5 years? That's the most fascinating part of the Chinese market. So far, we've counted 25 Teslas. That gives it a 6.5% share of the traffic at this intersection, ranking it second only to BYD. When talking about EVs, Tesla is a name you simply cannot ignore. As the pioneer of the modern electric vehicle, Tesla didn't just redefine the car, it completely reshaped the course of China's auto industry. You might remember when Shanghai brought in the Tesla Gigafactory. The government provided massive policy support, not just land and loans, but more importantly, allowing it to be the first ever wholly foreign-owned car factory in China. Why give a competitor such a huge advantage? The strategy was clear. China wanted to introduce a strong catfish to stir up the stagnant waters of the domestic EV market. It wasn't just about the production value of a few thousand cars. It was about building the massive world-class supply chain that comes with Tesla. That strategy turned out to be an epic success. After Tesla entered China, it forced domestic car makers to stop making excuses and start innovating. More importantly, it cultivated thousands of Chinese suppliers in batteries, motors, and precision machining. Honestly, without Tesla's demand for high-end parts back then, the maturity of China's EV supply chain would have been delayed by years. The brands you see today, BYD, NIO, Li Auto, and all these local EVs we're counting, have benefited immensely from this world-class ecosystem. Tesla is still the industry benchmark, but its Chinese rivals are getting stronger every day. If international brands want to survive in China, they have to go electric, and they have to do it now. Take Volkswagen as an example. To keep up with China's speed, they didn't just launch the ID series, they actually partnered with Xpeng to use Chinese tech for their own smart cockpits. They've realized that to win here, you have to play by the new rules. Then there's Toyota. Their strategy is now super pragmatic. It's BZ3. It has a Toyota badge, but it's powered by a BYD motor and the Blade battery. This international shell with a Chinese heart is their shortcut to staying relevant in the EV race. Why the rush? Because Chinese consumers have changed. They want smart features and low running costs. If global giants stick to their old gas engine glory, they won't just lose sales, they'll lose an entire generation of drivers. In this market, electrification isn't an option anymore. It's the price of admission. This is a Li Auto. You might have noticed that among the new energy vehicles we've seen, Li Auto has a huge presence. This company is fascinating. It's the first among China's new forces to actually turn a profit. Its CEO, Li Xiang, is a legendary figure. Just like many Silicon Valley tech giants, he was a college dropout who started his own business. Before Li Auto, he had already founded 2 companies listed on the US stock market, PC Pop and Autohome. Using his years of experience at Autohome, he understood exactly what consumers wanted. He defined the perfect car for dads. While other car makers dismissed extended range, EREV technology as outdated, Li Auto used it to solve range anxiety and became an overnight success with the Li One. However, with great success comes great controversy. Recently, the brand has been targeted by organized online trolls. First, there's the backlash against their flagship MPV, the Mega, with some cruelly claiming it looks like a hearse. Second, there are online narratives labeling Li Auto owners as undisciplined drivers. In my view, this shows how cutthroat the Chinese market has become. When a company grows this fast, it inevitably steps on some toes. But at the end of the day, customers vote with their wallets. If the product wasn't solid, we wouldn't see so many of them on the road today. Can Li Auto survive this wave of negative PR? Here comes another BYD Shin. This is probably the most recognizable ride-hailing car you'll see on the streets of China. Here, the highly developed ride-hailing market acts like a massive social sponge. Over the years, it has absorbed a huge number of unemployed individuals, becoming the final safety net for many middle-aged workers. But today, this market has reached a state of extreme saturation. Because ride-hailing is now everywhere, China's traditional taxi market has severely withered. The era of waving your hand on the street to hail a cab has been replaced by the smartphone. While this has massively boosted efficiency, the price has been a total reshuffling of the entire industry. For the drivers themselves, life is getting tougher. With too many people entering the field and platforms taking bigger commissions, the competition has become cutthroat. A few years ago, a hard-working driver could easily make over 10,000 RMB a month. Today, even if you work over 10 hours a day, you might only take home 6,000 or 7,000 RMB. And that's before you factor in vehicle wear and tear or insurance. To survive in this low-margin era, the vast majority of drivers firmly choose EVs because the charging costs are so low. This massive demand has even shifted the product lines of major automakers. Leading manufacturers like Dongfeng, Geely, BYD, and GAC now launch models specifically designed for ride-hailing. They don't aim for luxury interiors. They just want them to be durable, reliable, and precise with their battery range. It's not just the drivers who are feeling the squeeze. The competition between the platforms themselves is reaching a fever pitch. On one side, you have the regular army, players like Didi and T3 Mobility, who manage their own massive self-operated fleets. On the other side, you have industry giants like Xiaomi and Cao Mobility, backed by the deep pockets of major traditional automakers. But the most significant shift in the last 2 years is the aggressive entry of aggregator platforms, like AMAP, Baidu Maps, and even Meituan. To put it simply, an aggregator is a platform of platforms. AMAP doesn't necessarily own a single vehicle, but it integrates hundreds of small to medium-sized ride-hailing brands into one single interface. For passengers, this is a dream. It drastically cuts down waiting times. But for the industry, it further suffocates the survival space for smaller players. Check out the car passing by right now. That's the Xiaomi SU7. Yes, the same Xiaomi known for smartphones and smart home gadgets. Their first car is officially off the production line and hitting the streets. Many people say the Chinese EV market today is just as brutal as the smartphone market was 10 years ago. It's a massive talent shift. We're seeing top experts in software, UI design, and system integration move from the mobile world into smart cockpits and autonomous driving. This has completely changed the rules of the game. A car is no longer just a tool for transportation. It's becoming a smartphone on wheels. The internet industry's obsession with rapid updates and user experience is putting unprecedented pressure on traditional automakers. When talking about Xiaomi Auto, we have to mention the man in charge, Lei Jun. His career is a history of Chinese business evolution. Years ago, he led Kingsoft, making WPS a domestic powerhouse that could go head-to-head with Microsoft Office. Later, he founded Xiaomi, breaking the monopoly of expensive smartphones. He has called this car project the final major entrepreneurship of his life, stating he is willing to stake his entire reputation on it. Xiaomi was actually a very late arrival to the party. They entered just as the EV market was becoming a red ocean. Only 2 years ago, many industry insiders were skeptical. They thought a tech newcomer stood no chance in such a cutthroat, saturated market. But Lei Jun proved them all wrong with cold, hard facts. Within just 24 hours of its launch, the SU7 secured over 88,000 firm orders. By its third month of delivery, monthly sales had already surpassed the 10,000 mark. This Xiaomi speed isn't just about brand power. It proves that China's hyper-efficient supply chain can help a new player create a miracle in record time. Some say it's just marketing. Others say it's just the fans. But when you actually sit inside that buttery smooth smart cockpit, you realize that when a tech giant enters the car world, it really is a dimensional strike. This is the smart number 3. A few years ago, Geely acquired a significant stake in the smart brand from Mercedes-Benz. Today, it's a joint venture. Mercedes handles the styling and design, while Geely takes care of the engineering and manufacturing. But smart has been going through some growing pains. They've moved away from the iconic two-seater microcars and switched to SUVs and coupes. Honestly, sales haven't been great. When a smart car gets bigger and enters the crowded SUV market, it loses that unique microcar charm. However, rumors say the two-seater might be making a comeback. Let's wait and see if they can recapture that original magic. Behind Smart lies the massive Geely Group. Geely's strategy over the years has been clear. Strategic global acquisitions. Their portfolio now includes Volvo, Lotus, Smart, and Proton. They have successfully built a brand matrix covering every price point. Geely and Lynk & Co. target the mass market. Zeekr and Smart focus on the mid to high-end EV segment. And Lotus competes in the high-end luxury sports car category. Because of this vast global reach and diverse brand portfolio, Geely is now being hailed as the Toyota of China. Take a look at this. It's an AutoX robotaxi. If you look closely, you'll notice it's actually a modified Deepal SL03. The roof and the body are packed with LiDARs and millimeter wave radars. These are essentially the car's eyes, allowing it to achieve true, full-scale autonomous driving. Speaking of which, we have to talk about the city behind me, Suzhou. It has become a true city of autonomous driving. This region is home to some of the biggest giants in the industry. We're talking about Momenta, a top player in vision-based solutions, Plus, which leads the way in self-driving heavy trucks, and Qcraft, a pioneer in autonomous shuttles and ride-hailing. All of these companies have chosen Suzhou for their headquarters or R&D centers. That's a Maserati. In China, this brand used to carry a very unique label, the micro-business dream car. A few years ago, because of its Italian luxury vibe, and that loud signature exhaust note, it was the ultimate backdrop for social media influencers. People selling products online would pose with a Maserati to project an image of massive success. Back then, owning a car with that Trident logo was basically a golden ticket to social status. But times have changed. According to 2025 industry data, their sales have frozen at just a few thousand units. All right, the moment of truth has finally arrived. So who will be the 1,000th car to mark the end of today's observation? And finally, here it is. The 1,000th car just passed by, and it is a Volkswagen Tiguan. Now let's talk numbers. How much wealth are we actually seeing on these streets? If we set the bar for luxury at 500,000 RMB, or roughly 70,000 US dollars, we counted exactly 55 cars, making up 5.5% of the total. Let's look at the top 10 heavy hitters. Wow, it seems Suzhou's elite have a massive crush on Mercedes-Benz. The most expensive one is the Mercedes G-Wagon, coming in at around $150,000. Second place goes to the Maserati Quattroporte at $140,000, followed by the Mercedes S-Class at about $130,000. Aside from that lone Maserati, every single car in the top 10 is German. It's clear that German engineering still holds a powerful grip on the hearts of China's wealthy. And here's the kicker. They are all internal combustion engines. It seems that for new energy vehicles to truly conquer the pinnacle of high-end luxury, they're going to need a bit more time. Now, let's look at where all these cars come from. The market is dominated by four major players: China, Germany, Japan, and the US. The real shocker here is the rise of Chinese brands, which now command about 40% of the market. A decade ago, made in China, cars were synonymous with low quality and cheap prices. Today, that narrative has completely flipped. Chinese cars are now seen as leaders in tech and innovation. German and Japanese brands remain the top choices among foreign labels. Germany still stands for premium quality, while Japan represents fuel economy and reliability. These two remain the safe bets for many buyers. But the most notable decline is in South Korean cars. Brands like Hyundai and Kia used to hold a massive market share here. But now, they are following the same path as Samsung smartphones in China. Slowly fading into the background, squeezed between the rise of local brands and the prestige of German engineering. If we take a closer look at the data, a very interesting phenomenon emerges. Among Chinese brands, the NEV penetration rate has reached a staggering 85%. This means that Chinese automakers haven't just transitioned to electric, they have completely reinvented themselves in the process. Following closely behind are the US brands, with an EV share of 50%. It's clear that in the global game of electrification, China and the US are the absolute frontrunners, dominating the main stage. In sharp contrast, the vast majority of cars from other countries are still internal combustion engines. So, who is the real popular brand on the streets of Suzhou today? Let's look at the rankings. Sitting at number 1 is still Volkswagen, with a total of 104 cars. Although everyone says the era of internal combustion engines is fading, VW's dominance in the Yangtze River Delta remains formidable. It's the only brand to break the 100-car mark, proving that the German quality label is still the top choice for many families in the existing market. Following closely behind are the EV giants, BYD and Tesla, with 75 and 62 cars respectively. These two are aggressively taking over the market. Especially BYD, as the pride of domestic brands, its market share in the mainstream price segment is now breathing down the neck of Volkswagen. Moving to the middle tier, Toyota holds steady in fourth place with 60 cars, followed by the BBA trio, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and Audi. The performance of these three is incredibly close, all hovering around the 50-car mark. This shows that in a developed city like Suzhou, luxury brands still have a very deep and loyal customer base. Finally, let's look at the rising stars at the end of the list. Geely ranks 8th, while Li Auto has put up an impressive performance, tying with Honda for 10th place. Li Auto's appearance on this list is fascinating. As a premium domestic startup with an average price tag over 300,000 RMB, the fact that it can sit at the same table as a long-standing joint venture giant like Honda was practically unimaginable just a few years ago. After looking at the brands, let's zoom in on the specific models. Out of these 1,000 cars, only 9 super hits appeared more than 15 times. Number 1 might come as a surprise to many: the Tesla Model 3. With a staggering 39 cars, it takes the top spot by a massive margin. This proves that in a dynamic city like Suzhou, the Model 3 remains the definitive choice for young professionals and elites looking for an all-electric sedan. Tied for second place are the BYD Qin and the Volkswagen Passat, with 21 cars each. The Passat's steady performance as an industry evergreen is no surprise. But then you have the BYD Qin. With a starting price of just over $11,000, roughly 79,800 RMB, its extreme value for money has made it an unstoppable people's champion, whether for family use or ride-hailing. Next up are the Tesla Model Y and the BMW 3 Series, both with 20 cars. I want to highlight the Model Y specifically. Following last year's price cuts and government subsidies, the out-the-door price has dropped to around $34,500, 250,000 RMB. It's no wonder people are now choosing the Model Y over the Model 3 as their go-to Tesla. The remaining spots are occupied by joint venture veterans and premium domestic players. The Audi A4L, 19 cars, the Toyota Camry, 18 cars, and tied for 9th place, the BMW 5 Series and the BYD Han, 16 cars each. Notice something? The BYD Han, a domestic car with an average price tag of over $28,000, is now sitting in the same statistical bracket as a long-standing luxury icon like the BMW 5 Series. This upward breakthrough is exactly what the evolution of the Chinese auto industry looks like. The most exciting moment has finally arrived. Let's see just how deep the new energy vehicle penetration really is on the streets of Suzhou. Based on the 1,000 car sample I just recorded, there are 437 NEVs, accounting for 43.7% of the total. While this is still slightly lower than the 563 internal combustion vehicles, keep one thing in mind: that 56% represents a massive accumulation of cars bought over the last decade or even longer. According to public data, if we look at new car purchases alone, the share of NEVs has quietly climbed to 50% or even higher. This means that in Suzhou, for every 2 new cars sold, 1 comes with a green plate. The streets don't lie, and the data is as real as it gets. While the sunset of gasoline cars is still visible, the wave of new energy has officially swept through this city. If it were you, would your next car still be a gas-powered one? Let me know in the comments. I'll see you in the next video.